If you've ever walked into a board meeting with a strategy that you really believed in, something you had thought through very carefully, something you knew could move your mission forward like nothing else in a meaningful way, and instead of alignment, you were met with hesitation, questions, or even direct disagreement, then this episode is for you. Because this is one of those moments in leadership that does not get talked about enough. Not the easy board meetings, not the one where everyone nods and agrees and moves things along quickly, but the ones where the room shifts a little, where you can start to feel the tension, feels a little uncomfortable, and when you realize that the people you rely on for governance and support are not fully on the same page as you. And what you do in that moment matters more than the decision itself. Welcome to Nonprofit CEO Spark, the podcast for bold leaders ready to navigate growth and change with energy and confidence. I'm Marcia Beckner, nonprofit founder, former executive director, and culture strategist with nearly 20 years in the social impact world. Each week, I help nonprofit leaders stop spinning out, set boundaries, and design inclusive cultures where all staff can thrive. If you're ready to reignite your leadership without sacrificing your well-being, hit subscribe and let's spark your next chapter together. I want to walk you through a situation I experienced when I was leading my Lifeline Cancer Foundation, the organization I started back in 2007. Because this is a good example of what it actually looks like in real life when the stakes are high and when there are strong opinions around the table, and when the outcome isn't clean or easy or guaranteed. I wanted us to explore merging with a larger organization. Now, this wasn't the year I started my Lifeline, obviously, but it was about 9 years into growing and scaling our organization. And from my perspective, this wasn't about giving something up. It was about what we could gain and how many more people we could serve if we had the right infrastructure and partnerships around us. This organization I was talking about already had a strong relationship with hospitals and healthcare systems and national cancer support partners, and I could see very clearly that if we aligned with them, we could expand our program exponentially faster than trying to build everything on our own. We would have more support, more reach, more strategic connections, and the ability to grow in a way that would have taken us years, if not decades, to do independently. So for me, this recommendation was about impact. It was about the mission. And overall, the board was open to exploring it, but there was one board member who strongly disagreed. And this wasn't just any board member. No, she was one of our most major donors, someone who had supported the organization for years, had donated hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, someone who deeply believed in what we were doing. She was so dedicated, and someone who cared about the identity of our organization in a very real and personal way. And her concern was not unreasonable. She was worried that if we lose our independence, that we would lose the local personal feel that made the organization special. And that in becoming part of a larger global entity, something important would be diluted. And she was very clear. If we chose to go this merger route, she would no longer financially support the organization. Now, I know what you're thinking, and this is where leadership gets real, right? Because it's not just about the strategy anymore. It's about values, relationships, influence, and consequences. It would have been very easy in that moment to shift my position, to pull back, to try and preserve this relationship at all costs, or to start second guessing whether I was really seeing the situation clearly. And of course, I really wanted honest feedback, so I really did appreciate that. And at the same time, it would have been just as easy to push harder, to try to convince her, to defend the strategy real aggressively. and to make it about being right. But neither of those paths actually leads to strong leadership. What I had to do instead was stay grounded. Not rigid, not defensive or overly accommodating, but grounded. And there's a simple way to think about this that I want to offer you, because you will face your own version of this if you haven't already. I think it is about aligning and not convincing. First, anchoring your recommendation in the mission. I had to keep coming back to what creates the greatest impact for our people. Not what feels most comfortable, not what preserves the current status quo, but what actually moves the mission forward in a meaningful way. And then second, listening deeply, especially to the strongest resistance. I respected this board member so much. I was so grateful for all she had done for us throughout the years. But what I realized is that she wasn't just disagreeing with the idea, she was protecting something. She was protecting the heart of the organization as she had experienced it, the connection, the identity, the community. And when you can see that, when you can understand what someone on your board is trying to protect, the conversation shifts. You stop reacting to the disagreement or feeling defensive, and you start engaging with what matters underneath it. And then third, interpreting the signal, not the tone. Not getting caught up in something she said or how she said it, but asking yourself, what's the insight here? What is the valid concern that needs to be acknowledged as we move forward? And then guiding the conversation from there. This is where your role as a CEO or executive director really shows up. Not to collapse your perspective and not to override others, but to hold that bigger picture vision. To say, here is what I believe is possible. Here's what I'm hearing from all of you. And here are the paths in front of us. And then naming the reality clearly, including the hard parts, because there are trade-offs to every decision. There is no version of this decision where everything stays the same, and part of leadership is being honest about that. And what was personally interesting for me is that the real work was internal. There were moments when I could feel the pull to second guess myself, to wonder if I was putting too much at risk, to feel the weight of knowing that this decision could impact relationships that have been built with intention over years of time. But confidence in leadership doesn't mean everyone agrees with you. It means you can stay steady while they don't. Staying connected to the mission and the vision, and staying open to input without losing my own clarity. In the end, the board voted to move forward with a merger. And this was exciting. We did merge. And just as my board member had told me, we did lose her as a major donor and a volunteer for the organization. And I want to pause here because this is the part that many of us struggle with. This was really hard, and it was also okay. Both things can be true, because one of the most important mindset shifts as a leader is understanding that people, including your board members and your donors, are part of your organization for seasons. And as your organization grows, as it evolves, the people who align with the future vision may not always be the same who have aligned at an earlier stage of your growth. And this doesn't make anyone wrong. It doesn't diminish their contribution. It simply means the organization is evolving, and so are they. And what I've seen over and over is, not just in my own experience, is that when you lead with clarity and conviction and confidence around your mission, you do not lose support, you just shift it. You may lose a board member here, but you will gain another one who really aligns with that future vision. It only happens when you stay grounded. If you start making decisions out of fear of losing people, you will slow down your impact and create confusion in your organization. If you lead with confidence and an abundance mindset, trusting that the right people and resources will come alongside your mission, you will build something much stronger over time, and that is what we did. We merged into a global network called the Cancer Support Community. It was the best thing we ever did. When we merged, me as the CEO and the CEO of Cancer Support Community aligned on a very important thing. Does 1 + 1 = 3 for people with cancer. That was the equation that we stayed true to, that we made our merger decision on, and that we talked to both of our boards of directors who had to vote yes for this next thing to happen. So if you find yourself in a situation where your board disagrees with you, especially when the stakes feel so high, I want you to remember this. Your job is not to get everyone to agree with you. Your job is to lead through the complexity without losing your clarity, your voice, and your confidence. And here's one small shift you can take into your next board conversation. Instead of trying to resolve the disagreement quickly, pause and ask yourself, what is each person trying to protect? And how do I lead this conversation in a way that honors that while still moving the mission forward? That's where real leadership happens, and that's what builds trust even when there isn't full alignment. If there's something you're navigating right now and you want support thinking through your board dynamics, your strategic decisions, your leadership approach, and how to move forward with confidence, I'd love to support you. You can head over to culturecares.com and look at the Burnout to Boundaries tab. There you can book a 90-minute strategy session with me where we will dive deep into your specific issues, what's impacting your organization and your own health and well-being, so we can align everything so that it works for you instead of against you. And if this episode resonated, please share it with another nonprofit leader who's in the middle of a tough board conversation, because these are the moments that shape how we lead and ultimately how much impact we're able to create. And always remember, you are meant for great things and you don't have to burn out to prove it. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Nonprofit CEO Spark. If you're ready to turn burnout into boundaries and build a healthy, happy culture where everyone, including you, can thrive, visit culturecares.com to learn how I support nonprofit organizations like yours. If this episode brought you value, share it with a fellow leader navigating stress and overwhelm. And remember, you are meant for great things and you don't have to burn out to prove it. Until next time, keep leading with courage and confidence.